We do not care.
Welcome to an emergency episode of the We Do Not Care podcast. Breaking news, according to Schefter, Coach Mike McCarthy is coming to Pittsburgh apparently, which is, wow. I mean, that is very surprising. You know, they had their in-person interview, I believe it was Wednesday or something like that, maybe even Thursday. I understand he's a PA native. This is kind of a shock to the both of us. You know, we thought they would go for someone like, like Shula or Shihas or even Weaver. So I don't know. It's the deal's still being finalized, but I think it's very likely that it's just going to get done. And Mike McCarthy is going to be your 2026 Steelers head coach. So again, it's very shocking. I'm not going to fully go into it and sort of jump off the boat and, I'm going to support a new team. I'm going for the Rams right now, whatever it is. Still a little bit in shock. I'm just going to think optimistically. Let's wait and see who they bring in as coordinators. Could still get Shieldhouse, could still get Weaver, could still get a young offensive mind. So don't want to jump to any conclusions just yet. Obviously not our top candidate, but at the same time, he's still a Super Bowl champion. He still has a great resume, maybe not in the latter half of his career. So I think it's just sort of a waiting game, and we'll see what happens. And I think these coordinator hires that are coming soon are going to play a massive part in this team's success next year and how fans view the organization as a whole going into next year. So if you want to take it away with your thoughts.
This is an all-time Steelers move. I think we are one of the only franchises in the league that would do something like this. It's tough. Trying not to overreact. Like you said, I think coordinators who they hire will play a huge role. If they retain either coordinator, I will be massively disappointed. I will be massively disappointed because if they bring in two young coordinators, it's not common to bring in two coordinators like that for a new season. But if they bring in two at once, it will show to me that at least going forward into the future, maybe one of these guys who they bring in will end up being the Steelers' head coach. We don't have a lot of precedent behind hiring head coaches. We've only had 3. So, McCarthy is looking like he's going to be the 4th. He's 62. He's basically an offensive Mike Tomlin, in my opinion. And so it's tough. He did a lot with the Cowboys offense, but they had a lot. They had many more playmakers than we have. And so it's just it's hard to see this. I think Aaron Rodgers must be coming back. I don't think that Omar Khan and Art Rooney would be going through with this if not for Aaron Rodgers coming back. Yeah. Because this is hiring someone that not only has been out of the game for the year, but also is older. And yes, he has a lot of experience, and yes, he's had a lot of success, but we were interviewing all of these young guys, and part of me is thinking this kind of just screams impatience to wait to interview the Rams coordinators, Shula, and then also their passing game coordinator. But also the Steelers just went through a pretty transformational move with getting rid of Tomlin and him walking. And so maybe they just felt so urgently that they needed to right the ship by bringing in a head coach, bringing in a leader. I wasn't in the room for those conversations. I really wish I could have been a fly on the wall for them, but I'm going to try and think optimistically, like you were saying, and hope that, he can be effective here. He has a history of winning. I don't think anyone's doubting that. It's just more so getting over the hump, which he has not been able to do for a long time. So obviously this is still a shock. I really did not think that we were going to be hiring a coach, honestly, in the month of January. I just thought it was going to take a little bit more time. But like you were saying, he's a Pennsylvania native. He's a Pittsburgh guy. This is we're just going to have to see how this plays out. But still just crazy to see them going with an older guy. I really thought they would just go with someone younger. And even if it meant that we were going to take a few steps back, that they would stay committed to him, remain committed to him, even through losing seasons, and that we might have a few years where it was tough, but it would eventually lead to something greater where we kind of rebuild the roster, kind of rethink this whole ship here. And so to go with someone who's older, it's just, I'm still kind of in shock by this hire. It's crazy, but I think he's competent and he can definitely bring in a good staff, and he has a lot of credibility. So I'm hopeful that they can bring in some guys. I think that will be the biggest thing here. Who can they bring in for coordinators because if they retain either of Arthur Smith and Terrell Austin, I just don't have much hope going into this year. It's going to be tough to think that that much is going to change with a new head coach, whether it's on a completely different side of the ball or just a new head coach entirely. That a lot is going to change with those two coordinators. And I saw that Terrell Austin had been given another defensive coordinator interview. I'm praying that someone takes him off of our hands. And the same thing with Arthur Smith, who's been given head coaching interviews. And yes, he has the Atlanta experience, but I mean, this is wild to see that this is how this is playing out. And a lot of people are saying that until Rooney sells the team, we are not going to change fundamentally. And I think there's an argument to be made there, but I'm trying to think more optimistically than that and deal with the circumstances that we are being dealt right now and hope that McCarthy can come in here and surprise us. You never know. I mean, this if this season shows you anything, we saw so many AFC quarterbacks that we thought would be in the playoffs. Jackson, Mahomes, Burrow, none of them made it. And the Ravens are one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl. So anything can happen in the NFL. We'll see how this one plays out. I understand Steelers fans' frustration, but I'm trying to be more optimistic than that and waiting patiently to see who they hire at coordinator because please, please bring in some new guys. I don't even care if they end up being worse than the guys that we have. We need a clean slate. We need a completely clean slate.
I agree. I think going back to Shula, like you're saying, obviously a top candidate of ours, but the fact that they never gave him an in-person interview, whether they should or shouldn't have, obviously that's up to the organization, what they think. I don't know. It just seeing that and then seeing the stuff with Flores and him signing that contract, similar to how Mike McDaniel did just before he then just recently declined to do the head coaching interview with Buffalo. Just looking back at it in retrospect, it just feels like the Shula stuff, whether it should or shouldn't be, was just kind of like a sort of a pipeline dream. It feels like sort of Steelers fans sort of wanted to create that reality, whereas like I feel like that's one rumor that just got spread all over, and we don't really know what the organization was thinking. It's disappointing. I think obviously wanted someone younger, someone that has been coaching more recently. Again, I think we just have to stay optimistic. This is definitely a crazy feeling, a new feeling. I think going to the coordinators, my only worry is that from what I understand, besides Aaron yelling at the sideline, sometimes cursing people out, it felt as though he and Arthur had a mutual respect for one another. And I don't really want Arthur Smith to come back, but I could see the small possibility of him coming back if Rodgers does and him wanting to keep him, which I guess we'll see what happens with that. And I would be upset. But again, another sort of factor and variable to that is who do we draft, right? Who do we draft on the offensive side of the ball? And if Arthur can do something with that, because I don't want to give up just yet. I hope we just get a new OC. It would make things a lot simpler. But we also look at a Titans offense that went to the AFC Championship, and Tannehill had one of his best years in his career. So we just don't know. I think going to Terrell Austin, the fact that you're saying moving on from him or not, I think it's good that we are either choosing to re-sign him or not, because obviously his contract is up. I don't think we will keep him. I would love to have someone like Weaver or another, relatively, I guess he's in his 40s or whatever it is, but relatively younger defensive guy. And then OC, having Chilhas would be amazing. I know the Browns were sort of looking at him as a potential OC or head coach, so I guess we'll see what happens. But I think they also want to prioritize keeping Jim Schwartz because he is an asset, definitely, that they want to maintain. So, yeah, I think this is just sort of a waiting game. I think we're going to stay optimistic. We'll have another video out sometime this week, more of our thoughts about it. If there's any more updates, if this deal, gets actually finalized or if it falls through. I don't think it will fall through. I guess we'll see. But, you got to stay optimistic. We aren't the organization. We can't make these decisions. We just have to be hopeful. And like we're saying, I think who they bring in and as coordinators will play a massive part in how this team does next year.
Have to hope that he can garner a strong staff. He has a lot of experience in the league, both with the Packers and then with the Cowboys, excuse me. So have to think that he's able to at least demand that type of staff, and hopefully we supply him with the funds to be able to do so, because we just saw Kubiak with the Niners announce that he's going to stay, and he got some head coaching looks, but he just wants to stay under, under Shanahan for another year. So I don't think that's a bad idea. I think the market will be interesting next year as well. So, building up your resume with the type of playmakers that the 49ers have on offense is never a bad idea. I think playmakers and who we draft and then also who we bring in to mentor them on both sides of the ball as coordinators will be huge. We have not had this type of coach, an offensive coach, in a long time. So it's a huge switch for the Steelers, even if it's an older guy who the league knows very well. So
Yeah.
gonna have to see how this plays out. I'm very hopeful that they will hire some younger guys to lead us in terms of coordinators. And, maybe that opens up the door for one of them to be promoted, like we were saying. Who knows how long they plan for McCarthy to be here? Obviously, he's older at 62. So maybe this is only to kind of bridge the gap to the next head coach, but there's just no precedent for this. So it's going to be tough to predict. And we'll just have to see how it plays out with the Steelers because there really is no precedent for an older head coach in this organization. So
Yep.
we'll obviously keep you all posted with the latest that we know, and we'll certainly put out some more videos on how this plays out. Like you were saying, I don't see this contract falling through, and I imagine they'll be able to work something out. I don't think McCarthy is really in the position to demand that much money being on his couch for a whole year, and also given the fact that this is the only team that he was really considering coaching for. Just have to see who they bring in at coordinator. I think that's the biggest question mark right now. And also, you know, it seems like a foregone conclusion that Aaron will come back, but with how long we had to wait last year for him to announce that he was coming to our team,
We don't know.
everything is on the table right now. So they might end up going with, they might end up bringing in a younger guy for McCarthy to mentor, and we'll just have to see. But we will definitely keep you all posted. And as always, here we go, Steelers.
Here we go.